Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to the Baal Shalom's Matan Torah with commentary by Rabbi Avraham Mordechai Gottlieb. We'll be referring to, as always, the Rebbe Shlita. We're on the top of page 130 in section 29. This should be our last class in the actual text. And then we'll do questions for review as the final class for this section. We've been speaking about a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, the discernments between the two, which we'll clarify more so in this section. Let me pull up the live stream in case anyone tunes in and wants to ask questions during the class. All right. The header reads, "It requires courage to accept all at once the lofty level of the service expressed by a kingdom of priests. Nonetheless, God warned Moshe not to restrain himself, but to disclose all the service that is required. Also, Moshe was told just say the words, quote, a holy nation, without making explicit the tremendous reward that this implies, so as not to tempt the people of Israel from taking on spiritual work for the pleasure of its great reward." Begins the Baal Sulam. These are the explanations voiced by our sages in clarifying the verses ending, quote, "These are the words that you will speak to the children of Israel," as said in Exodus 19:6. They interpreted the precise wording, "these are the words," as no more and no less. Lo yoter velo pachot. This raises a difficulty. From where can you get the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, would add or subtract from the words of God, to the extent that God had to warn him about it? We have found nothing like this in the entire Torah. On the contrary, Scripture writes about Moshe, quote, "In all my house, he is trustworthy," from Numbers 12:7, which is the Creator's exclamation regarding Moshe, in essence, being the greatest of all time, the most humble man who ever lived, hence his incomprehensible madrega, his level. As in Judaism, we measure greatness based on our humility and our ability to give to the other, and the awareness we have of self being the awareness of our will to receive ourselves alone. In contrast to the greatness in the world being akin to one's acquisitions, net worth, and the like. But from what we have said, it is well understood that regarding the final character of spiritual service, as clarified in the words, a kingdom of priests, which is the final definition of, and love your fellow as yourself, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, it was indeed conceivable for Moshe to consider restraining himself so as not to disclose all at once, in a grand manner, this high level of the form of the service. This would be due to the fear that Israel might not be reconciled all at once to detaching themselves from all material possessions and give all their capital and property to God, as instructed by the words, a kingdom of priests. Practically, if we were to imagine this utopian ideal in today's generation, that would mean that someone would go to work, for example, in high tech, or to teach, or to farm, and all of their work, which would normally entail salary, would be a lack thereof. They would be working strictly for the sake of others. Meaning, one would work in high tech and produce new technology with the intention of giving to his community and humanity. One would teach others out of the love in their heart to give the wisdom to the others. One would farm in order to provide sustenance to a community, so on and so forth. No reward for oneself, no acquisition of self, no material possessions, no capital, no property. Everything is sanctified. It's totally removed, meaning to say it's all in order to give. And that's part of the perfected society that we will manifest one day. The Creator's will speedily and soon. First and foremost, we have to learn these foundational manners and slowly but surely work on ourselves in order to build the communal whole. The Baal Shalom continues. This is similar to what Maimonides wrote, that it is forbidden to reveal to women and small children the nature of pure service to God, which must be done with the intention not to receive reward. Rather, we must wait until they grow, become wise, and have the courage to carry this out, as explained above. The Rebbe Shlita notes on the spot regarding courage, and specifically the dynamic of this idea between women and children. He says, why is there a need for courage? When we begin on the path of a kingdom of priests, our natural desire to receive will paint a black picture of unlimited deprivation. And we will fear what we cannot deal with, the sense of lack and dissatisfaction. Because, as we are taught, our homer, the raw material that makes up all of creation, man being the center of creation, is the will to receive for oneself alone. More specifically, the will to receive. But we are born with the will to receive for oneself alone, and we develop our desires to eventually get to the highest level, which we'll speak about again, being the desire to receive in order to give. Because our will to receive never goes away. It's our chomer. It's the essence of who we are. Our job is to slowly refine ourselves in order that we can receive properly, that we can receive altruistically in order to give. But that's the purpose of creation. We're also speaking here about the tikkun, the correction of creation. We'll get more into that. I just want to digress a little bit and speak about the notion of the pleasure principle, which is spoken about in psychology, which in essence is our lives, meaning we make accountings, we make a cheshbon as to what will pleasure us the most. Even if we're not conscious of this accounting, unconsciously and subconsciously, surely we're choosing the things that are most pleasurable to us. If we were offered an orange and an apple, and our favorite fruit is an apple, we'll choose the preferred one because it provides us more pleasure. If for some reason we make the cheshbon that the orange is healthier in that moment and you need more of the nutrients from the orange rather than the apple, you're still provided more pleasure out of the fact that you made the accounting and chose the healthier option for you in that moment, and therefore chose the orange. The layers and sensitivities of our will to receive is infinitely deep. And the way to rise above, of course, is by the Creator's hand. Only He can provide the miracle of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of coming out of our ego, coming out of our self-love. So unfortunately, there are many, especially in this generation, who are not only leaving the Torah and mitzvot, being those who are born in it, but also those who come back to their roots. Balei Tshuva, like myself, who were born secular and then chose to discover what it means to be Jewish, and then after some time also go back to their old ways. Why? It's more pleasurable. The purpose of creation is to receive in order to give, because the chomer is the will to receive, meaning the Creator wants to give us all of His shefa, all of His abundance. There's the principle that more than the calf wants to suckle, the mother wants to nurse. Meaning to say, the Creator wants to give to us way more than we want to receive. So if someone comes into the Torah and the mitzvot, and they start learning in a seminary or yeshiva or the like, And the only thing they're exposed to is the body of the Torah. Depending on their soul, they might sense a great lack and a great dryness. And they'll judge Judaism in their lives based on this parameter of the dryness and surface level of Torah that they understand through that learning. Which is why the Zohar Kodesh says that one without the other is a klipa, meaning that we need both the soul, more importantly, and the body of the Torah. One without the other is not good. It's not balanced and veers us further away from the Creator. So, if one was to entertain that the greatest pleasures come from spirituality and a spiritual connection to the Creator, and some other things we'll clarify here as far as what a Goy Kadosh, a holy nation, entails, then they would have the courage, as written here, to continue forward. They would have the faith, the emunah, that all will be well, despite what they don't understand. Hence what the Rebbe Shitas writes here, therefore we need great courage to ignore this picture and continue to do the right thing in the direction of a kingdom of priests. At this stage, we are still referred to as women and small children, for this is a code name for someone of any sex or any age without the required courage, meaning without the necessary strength of emunah, of faith that allows one to rise above their own understanding and say, this is the best possible thing for me because this is what the Creator wants, even if I don't understand it, if I don't feel it, I'm going to do it anyways. As Klal Yisrael said, Naseh v'nishma. We will do and then we will hear. First we have to do the work. Hearing, just from the side of Bina, which is understanding, that'll come. In the meantime, we're just going to do. So this is saying that man, woman, and child are aspects within ourselves. We all have male, female, and childlike energies within. The principle, of course, of man and woman is giver and receiver. These are spiritual principles that are drawn into physical reality via the fact that the man provides the light that the woman receives, which actualizes into a child. That's not to say that women are more often than not much more giving than men. Just because their aspect is receiving doesn't mean that they don't actualize both properties, and perhaps even more so the aspect of giving, which they surely do. This is just meaning to talk about the principle of what these words are code for, because they exist within each and every one of us. The inner child that we have is meaning to say, when we prioritize trivial or mundane matters in relation to that which is most important. For example, there could be a great Torah lecture happening, and a child would much prefer to play outside or to eat candy in the corner than to listen to the Torah lecture. The Torah lecture objectively, perhaps one could say, depending on the detail, would be good at least for their soul to listen to, even if the child themselves doesn't understand it. But the hashpah, the influence, the energy of a good Torah lecture from a righteous person would surely be more beneficial than eating a piece of candy. But the child prefers to feed their will to receive for themselves alone, because that's the raw material. That's what they're operating by. And we have that within us. Also, often we constantly choose, speaking for myself, trivial matters in relation to the most important matters of Torah, mitzvot, and kind deeds. We choose other trivial nonsense to serve ourselves. That is the child within. So those who are operating in the state of consciousness of child, meaning prioritizing trivial matters, or woman being prioritizing to receive for oneself alone as well, then the Torah is not revealed to that person. Specifically, the true Torah of working in order to rise to the level of giving to give, of altruism, which requires great courage, as we learn here. The Rabbi Shita continues, a distinction must be made between the spiritual work of faith and the light of faith. There's avodah, the work, and there's the or, which is the experience or the reward, so to speak, from the work. We work in order to get the paycheck. Whatever the job is, the work is the avodah, and the paycheck is the or, it's the light, it's the pleasure that we seek. The work of faith without light is done out of self-coercion and requires courage. That is, the strength to follow a path beyond one's understanding. Because if you were told that you must do a particular job for even a short amount of time, let alone for hours a day, for free, the will to receive will fight us back every time. So to have the courage to rise above our understanding and say, it doesn't make sense for me to do this thing for free, to do this thing for the other when I have better things to do to serve myself. So to rise up, to elevate above this ego, that requires great courage, which is also dependent on receiving the courage from siyata d'shmaya, from heavenly assistance from the Creator. And that siyata d'shmaya can manifest by a community, having a tzibur, a kehila. The same way child, woman, and man are all aspects within us, so too the community of desires that exists within each and every person also has the aspects, as the Tanya HaKodesh says, Tzadik, Benoni, and Rasha, the righteous, the middleman, the in-betweener, so to speak, and the wicked. And this is what a tzibur is. A tzibur is actually an acronym, says a great sage of recent times. I forget the rabbi's name, but he says that tzibur is an acronym for Tzadik, Benoni, Rasha. So the same way we have man, a woman, and child within, so too we have Tzadik, Benoni, and Rasha within. But having a real tzibur that also confides in these teachings and this understanding of needing to rise above the ego, this also helps provide courage and helps provide strength to rise above our desire. Again, however, the light of the Torah can enable us to gain wisdom and grow, and thereby acquire the courage to belittle the pictures depicted by our bodily desire. A distinction must be made between the spiritual work of faith and the light of faith. The work of faith without light is done of self-coercion and requires courage, as just stated. That is, the strength to follow a path beyond one's understanding. However, when the light of faith is shining, there's no need for coercion. Because when we feel the great pleasure that is the light, then we know what we're working for. We're getting the reward in the moment, we're feeling invigorated. So we'll do the work because we're getting paid. So for example, if someone is in the middle of tefillah, if they're praying, and they feel the greatness of the Creator, they feel on fire, they feel spiritual perceptions and their whole body is invigorated with a desire to cling to the Creator. There's no coercion needed. They're getting the inspiration in the moment. They're provided a gift in the moment, so to speak, from the Creator. If someone is davening, if someone is praying, and feels absolutely nothing, and their mind is in strange vineyards, they feel like a zombie, that requires courage to rise above that in the moment, to try to connect to the higher levels of going above understanding. And to be happy with the fact that I don't need to receive the light. I can do the work regardless of what I'm feeling. Nasi v'nishma. So the Rebbe Shita clarifies here, apparently a kingdom of priests refers to the work of faith, which is corresponding to or the chasadim, the light of loving kindness, or giving to give, the state of bina, while a holy nation refers to the light of faith, or hamuna. Alternatively, a kingdom of priests is the perception of the light of faith, while a holy nation is the perception of the light of wisdom. And the second interpretation seems preferable. What's the difference between light of faith, or hamuna, and the light of wisdom, or the chokhmah? The light of faith, or the light of giving, is the pleasure of the service itself. To give to the other, that in itself is the reward. The chokhmah is actually a tangible experience of the Creator, of being invigorated with great spiritual pleasures, of being one with Him, however relative that may be at different steps in our progression. The light of faith, which is the level of Bina, is the tikkun of creation. That's the majority of our lives in terms of what we are trying to get to and actualize. The purpose of creation, the Hatarat Bria, is the Chokhmah. That is the true prize at the end, as stated by, or hinted to by the holy nation. That is being one with the Creator, being able to receive in order to give. So the Baal Shem continues. Therefore, God gave Moshe the above warning, no less. Meaning, don't restrain yourself, but rather spread before them the true character of the work in all the lofty, grand scope expressed in the words, kingdom of priests. The true character of the work as opposed to the reward. Explain all the work, but keep the reward simple. Why? He continues, and similarly, regarding the reward that is defined in the words, a holy nation, Moshe might have considered being explicit and elaborating further about the pleasantness and lofty delight hidden within the experience of cleaving to God. He might have done this in order to prepare them and attract them so that they would be accepting and agree to this enormous extreme of completely detaching themselves from any worldly possessions, as do priests. So therefore he received the warning, no more. Just say the words, a holy nation, and don't make explicit the giving of the reward that is included in these words. Why? The reason for this. If he had revealed to them the wondrous, extreme quality that is the essential nature of the reward, then of necessity they would get confused and take on his spiritual work in order to attain this good reward for themselves. This would be considered working for themselves and self-love. As the Rebbe Shita clarifies in simple words, this is the level of giving in order to receive. And thus, all their intention would be distorted as explained above. Section 13. So we see that regarding the high degree of the form of the work expressed in the words, a kingdom of priests, he was told to say no less, meaning clarify all the work and all the matters. And regarding the implicit degree of the reward expressed in the words, a holy nation, he was told to say no more. Because if they know what the incomprehensible pleasures of being one with the Creator entails, then all of their actions will be only in order to receive this great delight, and this confusion will actually veer them from attaining that purpose. So keep it vague, keep it simple, focus on the work. So too, we see this in stories of tzaddikim. The righteous, even if they reach the highest levels of spirituality, even if they finish their soul's job, make their personal tikkun and reach gamar tikkun, their personal final correction, out of a great love for the Creator, they consciously may, and many seemingly do, choose to drop all of their degrees in order to serve again in simplicity. They prefer to work for the Creator in emunah, being above understanding, as opposed to existing in a constant state of consciousness of being totally unified with the Creator, which is a great, incomprehensible pleasure. And so that hints to us how important it is to stay in emunah and stay in the aspects of giving. And even when we can receive altruistically, that preferring to choose the giving and the emunah, that is the ideal. Of course, Shabbos, for example, we are commanded to enjoy. We should receive the great foods and drink and the like in order to give goodness to the Creator, because He wants us to delight ourselves. Of course, in honor of Him and His Shabbat, and sing praises to Him and speak divrei Torah at the table and the like. So this is the difference between a kingdom of priests and holy nation. One is the work, and one is the reward. The work is to attempt to get to giving to give. And even then, when we get and pass the threshold by the Creator's hand to the miraculous level of altruism, we still have to continue with that and eventually get to Goy Kadosh, being the incomprehensible pleasures, being one with the Creator. So that is ha'arvut, the mutual guarantee. As we said at Matan Torah, Nasi v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. And we accept it under the notion of that we are reaching v'yahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving our fellow as ourselves. This is the main pivot of all the Torah. This is the highest level. This is all that we've been speaking about in essence. But next class, we're going to do some review. Not so long, just has 9 questions here at the end of the section, referencing different bullet points from throughout the learning. I'm not certain what we're going to do next. There are 2 other essays in this book. We kind of skipped ahead and went right into Matan Torah. But there's 2 other beautiful essays in this work that we can read through. Or it might be good to jump to the Rav Shlita's essays in the back, Insights for Living the Kabbalah, and have a separate series. Or both, we'll see. In any case, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy. Please spread the word to those who you believe would benefit from this learning. Shalom, Wesley. If you're just tuning in, we just finished a class. It is a Hebrew channel, but we have these English classes by myself for the Boston's Matan Torah, and there are other English translations as well. You are a man of the earth, you say, as we all are. We are all pieces of Adam Harishon. We're all pieces of the soul that was the first man. And the world was made for Adam. Therefore, the world was made for each and every one of us. We are infinitely special. We have a nefesh elokis, a holy soul that the Creator bestowed upon us, which is a chelik elokai mimal. It's a heavenly portion on high. All the best.